My name is Myra Spencer, and I'm 35 years old. The soft buzz of the fluorescent lights echoed through the third-floor hallway of St. Catherine's Hospital as I made my way down the corridor. My white coat brushed lightly against my scrubs while a tablet filled with patient charts rested securely beneath my arm. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, the kind that blended into countless others since my divorce. My day was packed with patient rounds, paperwork, and the quiet comfort of a career that demanded nothing more than skill, composure, and confidence. Over the previous 12 months, I had carefully rebuilt every piece of my life after Adrian and I finalized our divorce. It hadn't been easy, but I had managed. Most days, his name never even crossed my mind. That changed the instant I turned the corner near the cardiology waiting area and saw someone I never expected to meet again. Veronica Cole sat stiffly in one of the waiting room chairs, gripping her purse tightly in her lap as though it were armor. The second our eyes met, her posture shifted. She rose gracefully, smoothed the front of her blazer, and offered the same calculated smile I had endured for years at family dinners, the smile that always appeared moments before she delivered another carefully aimed insult. It had been over a year since I'd seen her, not since the day I packed my belongings and walked away from the house Adrian and I had shared on Birchwood Lane. Time had changed many things in my life, but it clearly hadn't softened Veronica. "Myra," she said, stretching my name with unmistakable satisfaction. "Well, this is unexpected. Still pretending to be an important doctor?" I kept my face calm, wearing the same professional expression I used whenever someone tried to provoke me into an argument. "Working in a hospital teaches you that not every confrontation deserves your energy." "Veronica," I replied evenly. "I didn't realize you came to St. Catherine's." "My sister's having a procedure," she answered with a careless wave, making it obvious that her sister's condition mattered far less than whatever she had been waiting to say. She stepped closer, and the familiar scent of her sharp floral perfume instantly pulled me back through 15 uncomfortable years of forced family gatherings. It was a fragrance I had never liked and never forgotten. "But running into you feels almost like fate," she continued with a satisfied smile. "I've been wanting to tell you something for a very long time." I didn't ask what she meant. Experience had taught me that Veronica never needed encouragement before saying exactly what was on her mind. "Leaving you was the smartest decision my son ever made," she announced. Her voice was carefully measured, loud enough for people nearby to overhear, yet soft enough to pretend she wasn't trying to humiliate me publicly. "Now he's married to your best friend, and they have a beautiful baby boy together." There it was. The sentence she'd probably rehearsed countless times over the past year. She delivered it with the confidence of someone convinced she had just shattered another person's world. My thoughts drifted to Olivia. We had shared a tiny college apartment, laughed through endless nights, stood beside each other through life's biggest milestones. She had even been one of my bridesmaids. Then, months before my marriage collapsed, her phone calls slowly stopped. At the time I never understood why. Eventually, I learned the truth, though by then it hardly mattered anymore. Standing there in my white coat with patient charts tucked beneath my arm, I waited for the pain Veronica expected to see on my face. It never came. "Is that really what you believe?" I asked quietly. My voice wasn't angry. It wasn't sarcastic or defensive. Yet something about my calm response made the confidence in her expression crack for the first time. Her smile weakened ever so slightly as confusion replaced certainty. She had expected tears, outrage, or heartbreak. Instead, she found none of them. She hesitated before trying once more. "I just thought you deserved to know exactly what you lost," she said, though the certainty in her tone had noticeably faded. "A grandson. A real family. Everything you could never give him." I remained silent for a moment. My eyes drifted toward the large clock hanging on the wall before returning to her face. Around us, hospital life continued without pause. Nurses hurried past with charts. Patients were wheeled through the corridor. An announcement echoed over the intercom. The world refused to stop simply because Veronica wanted to create a dramatic scene. For a brief second, I almost felt sorry for her. She had spent so much time imagining this encounter, believing it would finally destroy me. "You should probably get back to your sister," I said gently as I stepped aside to continue down the hallway. Before either of us could move, the door at the far end of the corridor opened. A tall man entered wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal gray suit instead of medical scrubs. He carried himself with effortless confidence, the kind of quiet authority that caused several nurses near the station to instinctively straighten their posture without even realizing why. His eyes swept across the hallway only once before settling on me. The moment he recognized me, the serious expression on his face disappeared, replaced by unmistakable warmth. "Myra," he called, walking toward me with calm, confident strides. I watched Veronica turn toward him. Recognition struck her almost instantly. The color drained from her face so quickly it was as though every ounce of confidence had vanished in a single heartbeat. Her lips parted, but for the first time since I had known her, she couldn't find a single word to say. Julian reached my side and naturally rested a gentle hand against the small of my back, the gesture so familiar and effortless that neither of us had to think about it. Julian reached my side, his hand settling naturally against the small of my back. It wasn't an intentional display of affection, it was simply the quiet comfort that comes from two people who had learned to move through life together. "Sorry I'm late," he said, glancing briefly at his watch. The board meeting dragged on. Dr. Whitfield refused to stop discussing the plans for the new hospital wing. "You're right on time," I replied. Something in my voice must have caught his attention because his eyes shifted toward Veronica. He quickly noticed the stiff expression on her face and the way she clutched her purse tightly against her chest, as though it could somehow protect her from whatever was unfolding. "Mrs. Cole," Julian greeted politely. His tone was respectful, yet carried the familiarity of someone who had met her before. "I wasn't expecting to see you here." Veronica stared at him in disbelief. Her lips moved twice before any sound came out. "Julian," she whispered, almost as if saying his name aloud might prove she was imagining the entire moment. You know each other?" "We're getting married this spring," I answered calmly. The words settled over her like a heavy wave. I watched her struggle to fit this reality into the version of my life she had created in her mind. She had convinced herself I was lonely, broken, and forgotten after the divorce. The woman standing in front of her didn't match that picture at all. But the true shock came only moments later. Julian looked toward me and said casually, "I meant to call you earlier. The audit on Coal Industries was finalized this morning. We found enough irregularities in the quarterly reports to bring the matter before the board tonight." Out of the corner of my eye, I felt Veronica stiffen. "Coal Industries," she repeated, her voice suddenly weak. "You're talking about my husband's company. Adrian's company?" Julian glanced at her, immediately realizing that what he had assumed was an ordinary conversation had become painfully personal. "I oversee capital allocation for the investment firm that owns the majority stake," he explained carefully. "We've had concerns about the company's financial records for several months. This morning, the investigation confirmed that funds were transferred from client accounts where they never should have been touched. Adrian's name appears on most of those transactions." For a moment, everything around us seemed to disappear. The waiting room was still busy. Nurses continued walking through the corridor, conversations carried on, and announcements echoed over the intercom. Yet all I could hear was Veronica's uneven breathing as the truth settled over her. It was the sound of a mother realizing that the carefully protected image of her son was collapsing right before her eyes. "That can't be true," she murmured. But even she no longer believed the words. "Adrian wouldn't do something like that. He's always been careful, always." Julian's expression softened with genuine sympathy. "I'm sorry," he said sincerely. "The board will decide how to proceed tonight. I expect the legal department will be contacting him before the end of the day." I thought about Olivia. Only minutes earlier, Veronica had proudly described Adrian, Olivia, and their baby as though their happiness proved my failure. Now I couldn't help wondering whether Olivia even knew what was about to happen. How long would that perfect life survive once bank accounts were frozen, attorneys became involved, and the company supporting everything they had built began collapsing under the weight of hidden secrets? I need to leave," Veronica said quietly. The confidence that had defined her for years had completely disappeared. Her face remained pale as she turned toward the elevators without another word. Her footsteps echoed unevenly across the polished hospital floor until she disappeared from sight. I expected to feel victorious. Instead, what settled inside me was something far quieter. Peace. For years I had imagined what it would feel like to watch Veronica lose the certainty she carried so proudly. Yet standing there, I realized I no longer needed her pain to heal my own. "You okay?" Julian asked softly as he turned toward me, gently taking my hand. "I am," I answered. This time, I meant every word. A year earlier, I had stood inside a courtroom signing the papers that ended the marriage I believed would last forever. In the lonely days that followed, I often wondered if I would ever feel truly whole again. I never imagined that answer would arrive in a hospital hallway. Not through revenge. Not through an argument. But through the quiet realization that I had rebuilt an entirely new life while I was too busy surviving to notice it happening. Veronica had come to that hospital hoping to make me feel insignificant. Instead, I walked away with Julian beside me, lighter than I had felt in years, finally understanding one simple truth. The greatest revenge isn't carefully planned. It happens naturally when you keep moving forward, continue building your life, and refuse to let the people who underestimated you decide your worth. If this story resonated with you, and you've ever had someone try to convince you that you weren't enough, remember this. Your greatest victory isn't proving them wrong. It's creating a life so fulfilling that their opinion no longer matters. Thank you for reading, and I'll see you in the next story.